Well, good morning from Sydney, from the picturesque North Sydney Oval, where the Lions have just finished training and doing a little bit of media ahead of tomorrow night, morning your time, tour game against the Waratahs. Their third game on Australian soil. They've hit 50 in both games against the Force and the Reds so far, and they're hoping to do so with a much changed team against the Waratahs, the local team here in Sydney, a traditional giant of Super Rugby and of Australian rugby, but this year haven't had such a great season, probably not on paper as strong as the Reds team that the Lions hit for 52 on Wednesday night. So the Lions will be expected to kind of come here and roll over, or not here, but to come to Sydney and roll over the Waratahs. They do have Taniela Tupou, who's a massive talking point in the local media. He's destined to sign for Racing 92 next season. He's a really important player for the Wallabies, but he's had a really difficult season. He's talked openly about his struggles, about how he's almost forgotten how to play rugby. And he, at the same time, is a player that the Wallabies would love to have back on deck for this test series. He's been released. He's not playing for Australia, who play Fiji on Sunday. He's playing with the Waratahs, but a big performance up against the Lions, up against Pierre Schumann, who starts for the Lions, will be a big statement for him and put him right back in the frame. And they kind of need him because the Wallabies have a number of injury issues. Will Skelton and Rob Valentini are both considered big doubts for this game on Sunday. Local media speculating that they're out, and from what I'm hearing, Skelton in particular is a big doubt for the first test against the Lions in just over 2 weeks' time back in Brisbane. So for the Wallabies, it's a big weekend. They play on Sunday against Fiji. Andrew Kellaway's another Wallaby who'll feature against the Lions here, and they'll want to be impressing ahead of Joe Schmidt's final squad selection for the Lions series. They get a couple of days off after that Fiji game. For the Lions, well, it's a big day for all of these players because it's getting very tight in terms of test selection. Owen Farrell still hasn't arrived. He gets here tonight. He's been the big talking point. All of the players were talking about him and how excited they are to get him into the Lions squad. He has to play a little bit of catch up, but obviously he knows a lot of the coaches. He certainly knows one coach better than others. But there's lots to play for the team who are playing. Like the likes of James Ryan was just doing media. It's his first start for the Lions. It's exactly 2 weeks out from the first test. Joe McCarthy had a huge game in that Western Force game, so Ryan will know that he has to have a big performance if he's going to put himself in the frame. He's partnered by Tadhg Beirne in the second row, an established combination and a player who's been named captain. What a huge honour for him, but he has work to do because Ollie Chesson played well on Wednesday. And we also have to wonder about the weighting of these games and how difficult they are, because if you play well against the Western Forces, McCarthy did so brilliantly and Henry Pollock did some unbelievable things that night as well. What does it count for? Because these games are so hard to gauge, because the Lions are drawn from 4 international squads, are so strong, and the Waratahs are a provincial side who had a fairly middling Super Rugby season, coached by Dan McKellar, spent time with Wicklow RFC, was recently the coach of Leicester Tigers, and was with Australia when they were in Dublin in 2022 as well. But they're not the kind of opposition who really should trouble the Lions. So it's going to be that's a big thing for Andy Farrell to figure out, how he's going to weight these performances in terms of his selection. But there's a big day for Pollock, who's played all across the back line, which looks like he's been kind of almost set up to be put on that bench for that first test. For the Scottish centres, Hugh Jones backing up Sione Tuipulotu, who's kind of play his way into form, and the two fullbacks who are lining out in the back three, Hugo Keenan at 15, Blair Kinghorn on the left wing. I'm sure what the plan was that Keenan would start on Wednesday. He got ill. Kinghorn would have started today or tomorrow. Instead, they both play in the same back three. Is that something that opens up some possibilities for Andy Farrell's Lions? 6-2 on the bench, another thing that he hasn't looked at before. Obviously, it must be a very attractive thing with the level of and calibre of forwards, the way the game is going. So if that goes well, he's got Ben Earl who can cover centre. There's lots of things, lots of strands for him to pull at over the course of the next 24 hours, because the Owen Farrell news has been the big talking point, but there's a game here to be played across town at the Allianz Stadium. And it's a big one for all the players involved. We expect them to win, and expect them to win well, but after that there's just 2 more warm-up games or test matches or tour matches rather, before the test series begins and the ultimate selection for that opening test. So lots to play for here in Sydney, and we're all looking forward to the game tomorrow morning your time.